What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with Reactions to the Classics, and today we have a top 10 list, the second edition of songs that didn't make the Billboard Top 50 in the U.S., brought to us by our patron and longtime friend and supporter of the channel, Joseph. Thank you, Joseph. I did a list like this for Joseph last month. Those were songs from the 1970s. They're songs that charted between number 50 and number 59. Didn't quite break that top 50 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the States, and they were fantastic songs from great artists. And this list is going to be more of the same. Before we get started, please hit that big thumbs up, hit the subscribe button. If you want to be a patron and supporter and friend of the channel like Joseph, check out our Patreon link. The patrons really do make this thing go. And check out our social media below, Facebook group and Twitch. Hit a follow. Live streams every Wednesday and Friday. Come hang out. We have a good time. So let's get into this a little bit. I always like to tell you what, and Joseph's a smart guy. He knows a lot about music, so he has comments on all these songs. So before we get started, he says, so last time around, as you probably recall, we were stuck in the 70s with a bunch of songs that flirted with but never quite made the top 50. Well, here we are again for more of the same, but from other decades. I could have easily just done 10 from the 80s, but I thought I'd mix it up a bit. So while it's 80s dominated, we pay a couple visits to the 60s and the 90s. It's not all bad as well. And as before, we stick strictly to Billboard US chart positions. And before we dive in, just a reminder, the music will not be here because of copyright, but there is a link below if you want to follow along, listen along with me. If you just want to know what I think of these songs, hang out right here. I'll have the lyrics up as always. Let's kick off with number 10 from the great John Waite. These times are hard for love. And Joseph says, this is off the album Rover's Return, 1987, went to number 53. Joseph says, this may not be my favorite track on the list, but it's the one I was surprised wasn't a much, all caps, bigger hit. I mean, it screams late 80s smash. Waite even co-wrote it with Desmond Child. It's almost like he's working off a blueprint of hit singles of the time. Maybe it tries that bit too hard. I don't know, but I do know I can't help but sing along whenever I hear it. And Waite always sounds like he means every word he sings. I just found it was the lead single off this album. Went to 77 in the UK. The most interesting thing I found is although it only went to number 53, and I'm a big man of the Billboard charts, especially of the 80s, like Joseph is. I know a lot about it. This song stayed on the Hot 100 for 16 weeks. Even though it only went to number 53, a very rare thing. I am familiar with Waite from, of course, the worldwide number one hit, Missing You, previous to this album. But I don't think I know the song, but it's always the fun game. Have I heard it? You'd think I would. It's 1987. I was 16 and obsessed with music. Let's find out. Thanks again, Joseph. Wow, Mr. John Waite. I mean, these times are hard for lovers. They were in 1987. They still are today in 2021. Joseph, not that I ever doubt you, but boy, oh boy, you weren't lying on this. This is 80s color by numbers here of how to have a hit. I can't believe it wasn't a bigger hit either. From the whoa, the backing vocals coming in, that anthemic, to the guitar, to just all of it, man. Starts out, babe, I had a dream, woke up in a sweat, darkness all around me, I was caught in its net, tried to reach for you, but you weren't there. But don't worry, guys, it was only a dream. But it put danger in the air. I can feel the nervous rhythm of your heart with mine. Could we ever stay together, stand the test of time? Baby, make me a believer, because this world will lie. And then we get in that chorus coming in, those background singers. Oh, these times are hard for lovers. It's getting harder for you and me. Oh, and we just kind of delve that out. Are we going to be able to stay together? Because it is rough. Mr. John Waite coming in at number 10. I had never heard that song, but I've heard a million songs that sound like it, so that's probably close enough. Now on to number 9, Mr. Gerry Rafferty, The Royal Mile from Snakes and Ladders in 1980 went to number 54. Joseph says, strange to think that this would be Gerry's last singles entry in the UK or US, only 2 years after Baker Street, the only song I know of his, I think. We have a reaction to that up on the channel, had dominated the charts, and his parent album, City to City, had knocked Saturday Night Fever off the top spot, which is a huge deal. But that's what happens when a great artist isn't cut out for stardom and makes, quote, interesting career choices, like refusing to tour the U.S. and slowly drifting off into a spiral of reclusiveness and alcoholism, of course, tragically. Perhaps it's just as well this wasn't a smash as it might have done for the penny whistle what Baker Street did for the Sax. Yeah, okay, maybe not. Just making sure to mention Baker Street a couple of times so you can plug that reaction. I hadn't even read Joseph, you the man. Always thinking of you. Thank you, Joseph. All right, penny whistle, let's go. Let's see what Gerry has for us. The Royal Mile, Gerry Rafferty. I've now doubled my listening knowledge of Gerry Rafferty. Now I know 2 songs of his. I don't know. What do we think of Gerry Rafferty's voice on this one? It's okay, I guess. I remember the sound of the passing train as it rolled through the night in the pouring rain, and the touch of a hand and the way she said goodbye as we walked in the sun down the Royal Mile. Saw the light in her eye and the way she smiled, and she cried in the night, and I heard her say, "Don't go. What can I do, sweet darling? I don't want to go away. Looking at you, sweet darling, I know I want to stay. What can I do, sweet darling?" I won't read all the lyrics to you, but it has that just kind of rhythm to the way he delivers the vocals. So he's going away, and then he kind of laments the fact that it's gone now, but thanks her that she was there for him, and he wanted to call her, and all this good stuff. And then it finishes the way it started with the same lyrics. I always like this nice little songwriting tip. So that's number 9, Gerry Rafferty, The Royal Mile. And next up at number 8, as you see below, we got the great Jimi Hendrix, still with the Experience at the time. Crosstown Traffic off Electric Ladyland in 1968 went to number 52. Joseph says despite his UK single success, Jimmy never really did catch on as a singles artist in the US, so this mid-chart showing isn't much of a surprise and was in fact his second highest charting US single, but the album was number 1, so I'm sure no one was bothered. I found that unlike a lot of the tracks on this album, this recording features the full lineup of the Experience with Jimmy, Noel Redding, and Mitch Mitchell. Hendrix also plays a makeshift kazoo made with a comb and tissue paper. In tandem at points with his lead guitar, and backing vocals are performed by Redding along with Dave Mason. And let's get another plug in here. We have the whole album review up here on the channel. Mr. Hendrix, Crosstown Traffic, less than 2.5 minutes long. Crosstown Traffic by Jimi Hendrix and the Experience, a short little sweet song. Crosstown Traffic, he's just using traffic kind of as a representation for the girl he's chasing or trying to get into a relationship with. It's really all about the production and instrumentation, the panning from headphone to headphone on the Crosstown Traffic. Jimmy also played the piano on this. He said it was the first time in the studio he played multiple instruments, being on the piano, the great kazoo, and of course the guitar. Enjoyed that one. I hadn't listened to Hendrix in a long time, so thanks for bringing that one to me, Joseph. Enjoyed it. Now we're already up to number 7, Bruce Hornsby, Walk in the Sun, off of the album Hot House in 1995. Went to number 54. Joseph says this musically upbeat tale of a strip joint ticket seller whose girlfriend happens to be one of the strippers was the first single from my favorite Hornsby album, where his jazzier leanings combined with the strong storytelling of his early albums with the range in a way that didn't quite mesh on his previous effort, 1993's Harbor Lights. Fields of Grey from that album topped out at 69, so this was a slight improvement, but proved to be his last Hot 100 showing. In a 2011 interview, he was asked about how his label RCA handled his increasing uncommercial offerings in this period, and he said, "They were really supportive and they really tried hard. I actually think they thought we had a couple of hits, but we didn't. These were close. These were sort of almost hits. I would say that, 50s, 60s, they're sort of hits. The record company couldn't quite deliver them, but I don't blame them. It was a tough climate. Grunge was all the rage at that point. I've got nothing bad to say about my time with RCA. They really tried for me, even in the face of what I was giving them, which wasn't commercial. But here's the deal with that. My first stuff that was hits, that wasn't commercial either. Everyone thought The Way It Is was a B-side. Nobody thought that stuff was going to be big. I actually loved that song. He had a couple songs with the range that I loved in the 80s. So haven't ever heard any other stuff from him. So let's check it out. Walk in the Sun, Bruce Hornsby. There you have it, Walk in the Sun by the great Bruce Hornsby. This song could have fit in the 80s. It's from 95. I mean that in a good way. It's a timeless song, fantastic keyboards and instrumentation. Starts out, my name is Vernon James, and I live to the south of town. I work my window watching the women go round and round. So some come here for love, some come here for fantasy. When 2 in the morning comes around, my baby comes around for me. So is he working at a bar? Is he working at a strip club? I don't know, but someone come, my someone. That chorus was fantastic, man. Very pleasing on the ears. Take the clouds from my eyes, my one. I know that sometime soon, one day, we'll walk in the sun. They'll have their time together. He's always taking tickets. The men are always looking down. Sometimes he feels like an animal in the zoo staring out. Just really nice lyricism, and then just beautifully arranged. The instrumentation, as I would expect going in, is top notch. So that one was a fun one. Now, talking about instrumentation, I imagine we're going to have that on this next one as well. We have Thunder and Lightning from Chicago 14 in 1980, went to number 56. I'm always challenged on Chicago's albums with my Roman numerology, but yeah, we're going Chicago 14, 1980. Joseph said, strictly speaking, we're in the 80s here, but fear not. What we think of as 80s Chicago, which was the only Chicago I knew before we started this channel, didn't come along until 82. Never again would we see a Chicago single with a Robert Lamb co-lead vocal and prominent horns culminating in a freaking trombone solo. There we go. This album died an absolute death, and while far from flawless, is dearly in need of reevaluation in my book. A couple of tweaks to song selection and track order could have made it a genuine latter day, i.e. post-Terry Kath career highlight, but it wasn't meant to be. As for the song itself, it began life as a scathing lyric written by drummer Danny Seraphin after returning to LA from a hugely fractious meeting with CBS label boss Walter Yetnikoff in New York. On that return flight, his plane was struck not once but twice by lightning. Sounds like something that's made up. It sounds so improbable that it's got to be true, right? He presented the lyrics to Lamb and Peter Cetera, who strangely wasn't credited on the original album, but was on the 2003 remaster, who provided the music. In his autobiography, Street Player Danny notes that Lamb, quote, did a complete revision of my lyrics and changed it around to take on the feel of a love song. Instead of being about a fight between our band and Walter Yetnikoff, it turned into a lover's quarrel. I'd wished I'd stuck up for my writing because after the revision, the song lost its meaning and impacted my eyes, though at least some of the lyrics concerning the meeting with the label made it through to the final cut. I found all that in research. I found a bunch of stuff about this, but really Joseph sums these things up better than I could. So a little Chicago 1980 style. Thunder and Lightning. Thunder and Lightning ended with that awesome, as Joseph said, freaking trombone solo. Total Chicago sound from what I have learned to know is the iconic Chicago sound. Not the 80s love song, You're the Inspiration, Hard to Say I'm Sorry, and all the other fun stuff. We have a top 10, I'm just getting all these shameless plugs in here, of Chicago up on the channel, which has a lot of tunes like this. This isn't on there, but this sounding, it just starts out, I thought that you thought that we thought we were bound to each other, but it's not that way. We don't care about one another. So no one is about the record company, but you can see how it's put into a love context. But either way works. Thunder and Lightning show me all the threats. You weren't saying Thunder and Lightning going to throw it all away. I'm guessing he used that terminology because he was struck by lightning twice. I'm not the smartest guy around, but I can kind of connect the dots there. Oh, how I loved you, you love me, now what are we thinking? Thunder and Lightning will burn you just as sure as I'm singing. We didn't know our love would end this way. So when that comes in, you can tell it, or I think, I'm 99% sure that's Peter Cetera coming in there, because Genius doesn't have anything on the side attributing any of the instrumentation or anything to anyone. I don't know. I guess no one's bothered to go in on Chicago 14. So if you know all that, go into Genius and edit it for all the rest of us that don't know. But enjoyed that one. A fun one. Now, so far, we've had some big hitters. But now the top 5, I'm going to tell you right now, they are some heavy, heavy hitters. Going to number 5, the great Neil Diamond, Brooklyn Roads, from the album Velvet Gloves and Spit. What an album. 1968. Went to number 58. Joseph said Neil often introduced this in concert as a watershed song for him, being the first he wrote based on his own life experiences. Nice. His first single for Uni/MCA after departing Bang Records, and the first of a few underperforming singles before Sweet Caroline came along and, Joseph puts, for better or worse, turned him into a schmaltzy superstar he became for the rest of his career. Indeed, Neil had few album buyers in this period, which may have been lucky, as in this vinyl age, in order to get to this gem, tucked away at the end of side one, you'd have to sit through the Pot Smoker song. And if you've never heard that, you should at some point. Just be warned, it probably won't put you off pot, but it might just put you off music. Ironically enough, the day that Joseph sent this to me, he came on one of our Wednesday live streams. Let's just go ahead and plug again, 1 p.m. Central Time on Wednesdays. And it was the theme. We have themes sometimes. It was bad songs by great artists. And this was a song he brought. Not this song, but the Pot Smoker song. And yeah, that's something else. But I digress. Let's jump in to Brooklyn Roads. Brooklyn Roads, the great Neil Diamond. What just a fantastic song. I mean, he's telling me a story. And Neil is a vastly underrated, in my opinion, artist. Nowadays, those that grew up around him hold him in high acclaim, but he's not really brought up a lot nowadays. A great, great songwriter. Actually won the Songwriters Hall of Fame all the way back in 1984. Didn't go in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame until 2001. Brooklyn Roads, he grew up in Brooklyn. He's telling the story of remembering growing up. If I close my eyes, I can almost hear my mother calling Neil, go find your brother. Daddy's home. And it's time for supper, hurry on. And then he sees two boys running up the staircase in his memory, hugging his dad. 2 floors above the butcher where they must have lived, first door on the right. And life filled to the brim as I stood by my window and looked out on those Brooklyn roads. And he's recalling his mom's cooking. He's recalling the report card I was always afraid to show. And then Mom would go to school and Neil would be crying. And the teacher would say, he's really smart. He just doesn't apply himself. His mind's always somewhere else. And then after that he puts, I built me a castle with dragons and kings, and I ride off with them as I stood by my window and looked out on those Brooklyn roads. I like the last 2 verses, thought of going back, but all I see are strangers' faces and all the scars that love erases. But as my mind walks through those places, I'm wondering, what's come of them? Does some other young boy come home to my room? Does he dream what I did as he stands by my window and looks out on those Brooklyn roads, Brooklyn roads? Fantastic last verse, right? We always think of our homes or apartments or wherever we grew up at as ours, right? But when we leave, someone else moves in, and then that becomes their home and their life and their memories. And sometimes it's like I remember the places I lived in, and there were quite a few when I was a kid, as my place, but they're taken over by someone else, and Neil kind of brings that in. Now it's someone else's memory. But fantastic track. Probably going to end up on my top 3 favorite tracks, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. Well, now at number 4, we got REM, The Great Beyond, from the Man on the Moon official soundtrack. 1999 went to number 57. Joseph says, Peter Buck later commented that the band always agreed that they were the obvious choice, obviously, to write the theme song for the Andy Kaufman biopic. Their problem was that they had already done it. The title of the film is a slight giveaway from their fantastic song, Man on the Moon. I think all parties were pretty happy with the end results of having to do a second one, though. I've become a huge fan of REM over the last year, so I'm looking forward to this one. The Great Beyond reached number 3 on the UK singles chart. This is my research in January 2000. The band's highest ever position in that country, nominated for a Grammy for Best Song Written for a Motion Picture. In the unedited version at 4:09 and at 4:26, the listener can hear Michael Stipe singing the following lines in the background. Here's a little for the never believer. Here's a little ghost for the offering. Both lines were taken from the 1992 REM song Man on the Moon, also about Andy Kaufman, from which the movie took its title. From my knowledge, this is the unedited version because it's 5 minutes and 7 seconds. REM, The Great Beyond. Let's get it. The Great Beyond, REM, that was absolutely fantastic. The longer it went on, the more I enjoyed it. I'm imagining just telling, the life of Andy a little bit here. I've watched the stars fall silent from your eyes, all the sights that I've seen. I can't believe that I believed. I wish that you could see there's a new planet in the solar system. There's nothing up my sleeve. And then it has a nice little hook. I'm pushing an elephant up the stairs. I'm tossing up punchlines that were never there. Over my shoulder, a piano falls, crashing to the ground. And then you want them to get into some sort of chorus, but they don't. They go into verse 2. Then we get the hook again. Then we get that awesome chorus. I'm breaking through. I'm bending spoons. I'm keeping flowers in full bloom. I'm looking for answers from the great beyond, right? The afterlife. Then we get another verse, the hook, the fantastic chorus, repeating itself over and over. You did get those hidden lines, but you had to listen to it for them really close. Just a fantastic, fantastic song. Now we're up to number 3. Dire Straits' Skate Away from Making Movies in 1980 went to number 58 in the U.S. Joseph says, have mentioned a few times that Making Movies is far and away my favorite Dire Straits album. This is one of the reasons why, and one of several cuts to have Roy Baton guesting on keys from, of course, the great E Street Band with Bruce Springsteen. I am going to dive into Dire Straits catalog sometime this year and do a bunch of reactions or maybe traditional reviews starting at the beginning. So I've heard a lot of great stuff about Making Movies. Looking forward to this one. Skate Away from Dire Straits off the Making Movies album. I see there's only 7 songs on this album. We've already done the first 2. This is track 3. We've already done reactions to Tunnel of Love and Romeo and Juliet. So go check those out when you're done with this. Love those 2. This is a fantastic song. Really just kind of taking on the persona, I guess, of this roller girl, this girl on skates, probably listening to music and just kind of what she sees. I seen a girl on a one-way corridor stealing down a wrong-way street. She had wheels on her feet while the cars do the usual dances, same old cruise and the curbside crawl. But the roller girl, she's taking chances. They just love to see her take them all. Then we get a little pre-chorus, no fears, alone at night. She's sailing through the crowd. In her ears, the phones are tight and the music's playing loud. So just like the previous track, I want that chorus to pop, but it doesn't. We got to go to verse 2, another pre-chorus. The chorus is fantastic. She gets rock and roll in a rock and roll station in a rock and roll dream. She's making movies on locations. A shout out to the album title. She don't know what it means, and the music make her want to be the story, whatever she's listening to. And the story was whatever was the song, what it was. Roller girl, don't worry. DJ, play the movies all night long, because you can close your eyes and listen to that music, and you can play the movie out in your head. And Roy's piano playing on that part is just fantastic. Great instrumental outro. Exactly what I would expect of Dire Straits of this time. Perfect choice. Now we're up to number 2. The great Billy Joel, the Downeaster Alexa from Stormfront in 1989, went to number 57. Joseph said, like most great songwriters, and then he puts in parentheses, and indeed most great men, not naming names or anything, Billy is a huge Gordon Lightfoot fan. And yes, I am a huge Gordon Lightfoot fan. Or Joseph may have meant himself there. I don't know, but I like to think that, he was throwing a shout out to me. And this is one of the songs that bears the influence most clearly. Itzhak Perlman couldn't be credited on the album due to record company politics, so was listed only as world famous incognito violinist. Most didn't know it was him until he performed with Billy at one of his Madison Square Garden shows over 25 years later. Wow, that is fantastic. Little tidbit, I actually own this album. I know this song. I didn't listen to it a lot. I do remember it. I'm curious to what I'm going to think about it all these years later. And I found a little research on it. The song is sung in the persona of an impoverished fisherman off Long Island and the surrounding waters who, like many of his fellow fishermen, is finding it increasingly hard to make ends meet and keep ownership of his boat, a type known as a Downeaster. The fisherman sings about the depletion of the fish stocks and the environmental regulations, which make it hard for men like him to survive, especially with the conversion of his home island into an expensive summer colony for the affluent. The lyrics reference locations in the outer lands. Alexa is also the name of Billy Joel's daughter, Alexa Ray Joel. The Downeaster Alexa. I will tell you right now that 49-year-old Sean likes this song a lot better than 18 or 19-year-old did. I see in the album sequencing, this was the 3rd song. It was preceded by We Didn't Start the Fire, followed up, song number 4 is I Go to Extremes, and song number 5 is Shameless, which wasn't a hit for Billy, but Garth Brooks took it and made it a huge hit in the 90s. Tells a great story. This song tells a great story. I see the Gordon Lightfoot stuff. I see exactly what Joseph's saying. There's not a chorus, but every verse, there's 4 of them, starts off with something, the first line, about the Downeaster Alexa. So it starts off and he's cruising around. He's painting the pictures of going through all these different places. I've had to sell my home, too proud to leave. I work my fingers to the bone. We go into verse 2. He could own his Downeaster Alexa and go where the ocean is deep. There are giants out there in the canyon. A good captain can't fall asleep. I got bills to pay and children who need clothes. I know there's fish out there, but where? God only knows. They say these waters aren't what they used to be, but I got people back on land who count on me. See, you're starting to feel like just that pressure, man. He knows nothing else. This has been his life. And he tells you in the 4th verse that He's a bayman like my father was before. So this is a family tradition. This is all he knows, and it's going away. He says, as a bayman, you can't make a living as a bayman anymore. There ain't much future for a man who works the seas, but there ain't no land left for islanders like me. So he can't make a living out on the sea, and he's had to sell his home on the island because all the rich people came in and took over probably as a summer vacation area. A really powerful song, and appreciate you bringing this one, Joseph, because when I saw it on the list, I'm going to be honest, because, hey, man, I'm always honest. I thought, I don't really like that song, man. But you know what? I actually do like that song. Now, the number one track, we have Limelight by Rush from the iconic Moving Pictures album in 1981. Went to number 55. Joseph said, I relate to what Neil Peart wrote about here. After all, a little while back, I was featured for almost 2 whole seconds in a commercial that was on every Sky Sports ad break for a fair few months. Got to the point that even my barber recognized me off the telly. Yeah, it's a drag, man. He's being joking here, everybody. Mercifully, that's likely the peak of my career, so I shouldn't have to worry about that level of recognition intrusion again. This expresses Neil's discomfort with Rush's success and the resulting attention from the public. The song paraphrases the opening lines of All the World's a Stage speech from William Shakespeare's play As You Like It. The band had previously used the phrase for its 1976 live album. The lyrics also refer to, quote, The Camera Eye, the title of the song that follows on the Moving Pictures album. And in 2007, Alex gives his take on Limelight. He said, it's funny, after all these years, the solo to Limelight is my favorite to play. There's something very sad and lonely about it. It exists in its own little world, and I think in its own way. It reflects the nature of the song's lyrics, feeling isolated amidst chaos and adulation. And I want to tell you, I did a bunch of reading on this. Basically, Neil just went, Rush went from being what all bands go, they're just working bands, to all of a sudden this worldwide fame where you couldn't go out anywhere without people coming up to you. Neil was a very private person, and just like to, be able to go about his way with no one bothering him. And once you get that level of fame, and there's really no going back. And so that's what this was written about. We don't have any album reviews up for Rush, but we do have up a few song reactions. I've never heard this song, but those song reactions do quite well. If people like Rush, they don't like them, they love them. Let's check out Limelight from Rush, number 1 on our list. Wow, Limelight, Rush, coming in at number 1. What a fantastic song, just all the way around. I really enjoyed the lyricism. The instrumentation is going to be top notch, but I really did enjoy the lyricism. The guitar solo, as Alex talked about, really does bring about kind of almost the sadness of the song, written from Neil's perspective, who was, they said painfully shy. Living on a lighted stage approaches the unreal for those who think and feel in touch with some reality beyond the gilded cage. Pre-chorus, cast in this unlikely role. He just wants to make music, man, ill-equipped to act with insufficient tact. One must put up barriers to keep oneself intact, to try to, run away from this fame, to keep yourself. And then the chorus, living in the limelight, the universal dream for those who wish to see. So limelights, before there was electricity, stages and theaters were illuminated by the burning of quicklime or the limelight. So we still call it living in the limelight, just a little FYI. Those who wish to be must put aside the alienation, get on with the fascination, the real relation, the underlying theme, and then the living in a fisheye lens caught in the camera eye. I have no heart to lie. I can't pretend a stranger is a long-awaited friend. So just really kind of, you understand what you would be going through if you all of a sudden became famous and not used to this kind of adulation, and you can't go to the grocery store anymore because everyone's coming out to you, but you got to be nice. Not that you're not a nice person, but maybe you're having a bad day or you're tired or you're whatever, not feeling well. Someone comes up to you, all of a sudden got to be their best friend. In today's world, we're dealing with phones and cameras all the time. So I can see, definitely where Neil's coming from here. I don't always agree when athletes who do a bunch of commercials and present themselves with all this, buy my shoes, do this, and then they go, hey, I never asked for all this fame. Well, yeah, you kind of did because you're perpetuating it. But for musical artists like Rush, they're just doing their music, man, and through their skill, they became famous. So it's a little different. Wow, enjoyed that one. I enjoyed the first edition of this list that we did last month, but I actually enjoyed this one more. So no pressure, Joseph, but you keep upping the ante a little bit. My 3 favorite songs are actually going to be decent. Well, 2 of them are going to be easy. The Great Beyond by REM, for sure. Skate Away by Dire Straits, I said for sure, huh? Now that third one, I'm going to go the Downeaster Alexa, which I would have never thought. It's the one song on here that I actually knew. And as I said, I thought, I don't like that song, but I do. I guess I knew Crosstown Traffic as well from Hendrix off Electrical anyway. So I'll go with those three. The Great Beyond was my favorite. Skate Away, the Downeaster, Alexa. Honorable mention to basically everything else. Fantastic list, Joseph. Just appreciate you bringing these, I'd almost call them hidden gems just because they weren't big hits. So guys, appreciate you coming along for the journey. And until next time, I will see you.